So today I want to talk about mainstream media, CNN, ABC, CBS, NBC, and there is no liberal agenda or grand conspiracy. I can just tell you that. I've worked in many newsrooms across New York, and the senior executives, the editor-in-chiefs are not coming into the office, closing the drapes, locking the door, dimming the lights, pulling in their assignment editors and their lead producers and going, all right, how do we wreck this guy? How do we bring down the conservative politician or this person speaking out? Doesn't happen. Nobody's doing that. Now, there is monumental arrogance in media, and we can talk about that later, but there's no grand conspiracy of liberalism. And the liberal bias can be attributed to really just the kind of inherent groupthink that is the media elites. It's just the kind of general temperament and outlook of people that go into media, and those that then go into media and work in New York, and those that go into media and then live and work in New York. Now, I live in Manhattan, and you can walk many neighborhoods. If you walk down the Upper West Side, there's no escaping just liberal perspective. In fact, you can kind of just transverse the entire neighborhood and never encounter a conservative, in your life. If you just live there in the Upper West Side, you can live entirely in a liberal bubble. And why do I say this? Well, because the people that operate in any system will inherently influence the system, just naturally. It's just an intrinsic outcome of that system. And you may be wondering, okay, well, if there's no editor-in-chiefs and, they're laying down like, here's the liberal thing, and there's no, head of CNN, the president of the newsroom saying, this is what we're going to do, why is there, what's going on? What's really going on? Well, what's really going on is in most newsrooms, you'll find people coming in, rambling around on Slack, and trying to figure out things last minute. It's like, oh, I know a guy, we'll throw him up. Or who do you know that we can use for this piece of content? Or like, who can we talk to? I don't know, we'll DM them on Twitter. It's a lot of scrambling last minute. It's a lot of, trying to hash things out, right before something is either airing or supposed to publish, or, whether it's, like an article online or a video or cable news. That most of it is very ad hoc and last minute, and there's way less thought that goes into most things than I think the average person appreciates if they don't live in, Manhattan or Malibu. Outside of the kind of Manhattan to Malibu, most people don't really think of politics in their day-to-day life. And I think that's somewhat skews to why they feel like, your average person feels like, well, there certainly is like a liberal skew in the media, and that's true, but it's not some cabal, it's not some conspiracy at all. It's, if you were to see the inner workings of these machines, if you see how the meats get made, you'd be like, oh yeah, there's just no way they could marshal any sort of strategic agenda in an effective way. It's just not happening. It's just too much content on a daily basis. The desire to get views and get clicks and get concurrence on traffic overwhelms any sort of what would be dictatorial agenda. So yeah, what's happening is really just kind of general groupthink of a system and the general temperament of the average journalist or person working in media. And those together, let's just take a television show, right? If most of the producers and the assignment editors are liberal, even if, let's say, the talk show host or the on-camera talent may be conservative, they're reading off a teleprompter, they're getting told what their A block is, what their B block is, and they're doing it every day. They're just 3 weeks into the job. Trust me, they're just taking what's being told on them on the prompters and the guests that are being booked. It's not like the person on camera that you see on CNN. Is like, oh, we should book this guest, and I want to book this guest to deliver my message about whatever. I don't care how you feel about Don Lemon. What's actually happening with Don Lemon or any of these people is that there's an entire army of people behind the scenes that are dealing with the guests, that are writing the stories, that are writing the pitches, figuring out what the rundown is for every day, and Don Lemon showing up and just being like, okay, yeah, that's what we're going with. And because it's somewhat fractaled out and decentralized in that manner, there's just no way to collectively control the conspiracy. So categorically, there is no liberal conspiracy in news. That's not to say there isn't a liberal slant, but there's just no conspiracy. Now the second half of this video is the kind of monumental arrogance that is the media elite. And that, I think is more of a problem if you want to combat any sort of bias. Now, it's funny to me because journalists have no problem calling out any other profession's bias. They have no problem going after, police or professors and talking about the inherent biases of like, well, the police force or the inherent biases of academia. But they're very good at looking outward. They're not very good at looking inward. And that lack of self-reflection or introspective thinking just isn't going to change. And because there's actually no grand liberal conspiracy, if you want to like shift the liberal slant in any way, it's much harder to combat. You'd have to like pick apart individually the kind of just arrogance of general people in media that one feel like they're able to like put their bias at the doorstep, and somehow they magically can do it in this profession, unlike any other industry in the world. It's just not true. They're inherently incorporating their biases, and the way they think about things, because of where they live, just generally aren't reflective of most of the country. And I can just tell you that. I live in Manhattan, and the general culture of Manhattan is very liberal. I was in LA the other couple of weeks. The general culture of LA is liberal. People don't think as much in terms of liberal and conservative across the middle swaths of the country as people do on the coast. They just don't think in the binary elements. And you think, well, who am I to say this? Listen, I grew up in Kansas, okay? Like, I have some understanding of how, I think and, my friends think and my peers thought growing up. In fact, most of my friends do not live in New York City. They live in the Midwest. And they don't think politics in terms of binary terms that people in the media think and people commenting on the media think, because even most of the media commenters still live in Manhattan, D.C., or, Los Angeles. So there you go. Those are just some things I want to address, that there's no grand conspiracy. There's really, an ad hoc, just last run-of-the-mill, trying to figure out content and the general temperament of journalists that drive whatever sort of agenda or bias you're seeing, but it's not top-down. And 3, it really stems from kind of just an arrogance of the media class. And that arrogance, there's just no real way to combat in any meaningful way, right? They could move their offices out of New York City and put them in Omaha and Kansas City, but are they going to do that? No. Because the people that want to work in media don't want to live in Omaha or Kansas City. They want to live and work in New York City. Anyway, those are just some thoughts. Hope you guys have a good one. See you guys in the next video. Click around if you want to watch another video. Thanks.